let's talk about some big changes coming to the tax code in Illinois if voters make that change on the November 3rd ballot. That's right. This is one of the first times in Illinois history that voters in Illinois will get a chance to deal with a big tax proposal on their ballot. Usually this is kind of stuff that's reserved for California. I mean, they always have ballot initiatives in California. So Californians are used to voting up or down their taxes, voting for new stadiums, not, saying, no, Los Angeles Rams, you don't get your new stadium, etc. Now, Illinois gets to vote on this. And what they get to vote on is whether or not they're going to have a fair tax or a continued flat tax. That's right. So whether or not they're going to be able to have a fair tax on their ballot on November 3rd, and let me just show you the headlines this morning in the Chicago Tribune, whether they're going to have a fair tax or a tax hike. So I said flat tax. I didn't mean flat tax. I'm sorry. But voters right now, they'll consider, this is a huge, big decision. Unelected, unaccountable corporate executives are not merely exercising power in our society, folks. They are ruling us right now. They are ruling us. Make no mistake about it. So think about, the central bank. Think about all of these corporate elites that pay nothing in taxes, are able to skirt through loopholes and other things, having to pay any taxes to Uncle Sam. And yet, who ends up paying the most in taxes? That's right. It's the W-2 employee, the person that collects a paycheck. So in Illinois, they will have to consider, before they even get to vote on a candidate, it's even above that on the list, on their ballot, they get to decide whether or not they want a fair tax. So how would this work? Well, what it would be a graduated rate system, so that as you make more money, you would pay more in taxes. Right now, it would be around it's about 4.9% or so. And as you make over 200,000, 300,000, it goes up to 7%, et cetera. It goes up. Sounds fair to me. Sounds fair, right? The more you earn, the more you pay. And instead of there being one flat tax rate, and guess what? Who gets hurt the most? It's the low-income workers. Who does well? It's the people that don't even have a W-2 paycheck. It's why Warren Buffett famously talked about how his secretary pays more in taxes than he does. Why? Because he doesn't pay taxes. He makes passive income. He makes active income as an active investor on Wall Street, so he'll pay capital gains when he sells stuff. But he doesn't pay money out of his payroll. So if you think about this for a second, one of the ways that we can make a more equitable tax system in this country is by taxing those things that are sinful in a way. Right now, think about, if you just sit back and think, okay, what are the things that we tax mostly when it comes to income, right? When it comes to income, what are we taxing? We're taxing people that go to work. So people get up every day, they drive an hour to a commute to work, they work their tails off, and then we tax them on that income, the payroll tax. Does that make any sense if you think about it? I know that the payroll tax is in some ways one of the more equitable ways of collecting taxes, right? It's based loosely on the amount that you earn. You make more, you end up paying more in taxes, but the tax bracket is all out of whack. So the federal government taxes you on this money. Instead, what if we said we could tax natural resource extraction, waste and pollution? So it would encourage businesses to be smarter with the way in which they produce goods and services in this country. They're going to pay more in taxes if they pollute. They'll pay more in taxes if they extract natural resources in the wrong way. So instead of income and payroll, what if we switch to this more equitable tax system? But beyond that, that's not even on the ballot. That's just a dream of mine. That's, beyond just a fair tax is this idea that we would also then start to tax those things more heavily, convert businesses away from that type of behavior. Add it to a Green New Deal, this idea of a fair tax system that would, penalize those types of sinful approaches to business. Instead of, they get to dump stuff in riverways, look the other way, and then pay a small fine if they get caught. Again, Warren Buffett not paying anything in taxes because he doesn't work. Most of our current tax system is currently wildly unjust. It's riddled with loopholes, subsidies, all kinds of dodges for corporations and the super rich. And the fact that Amazon pays nothing in taxes, but you might say, that's great, but they create so many jobs. That's great. But our overall tax system burdens those low-income workers more than any other tax bracket. If you read the tax code, all you need to do is read the tax code to understand that those people that collect a paycheck are the ones that the government deems most worthless. It's true. I'm not saying that to be offensive, but if you collect a paycheck, the government doesn't reward that type of behavior, which is sad, because without workers, our economy collapses. But the government rewards corporations and investors in Wall Street. It's just a fact. The rich get richer. Well, those cogs in the system, the people that work every day, they clock in, clock out, those people get hurt. The people that, work at McDonald's, the people that work at Starbucks, the people that work at Walmart, working hard every day, on their feet every day, hoping to get some extra overtime, extra hours, just so they can buy that one item that they want, or put more food on the table for their family. Also not with healthcare benefits, etc. Government rewards businesses and wealthy investors. That's just the way that it is. So, supporters of this graduated tax system say it's a fair way to shift the tax burden and generate more money in the economy. They'd raise upwards of $3 billion. This would also help cover a lot of the shortfalls that these state and local governments have right now, because Congress hasn't provided any kind of bailout for them. Opponents contend, though, that it's a job killer that offers no guarantees that these higher tax brackets for the wealthy won't creep down to the middle class. It's garbage, number one. I'm tired of hearing about trickle-down. Trickle-down economics has never worked. It was a Reagan idea that, hey, if the wealthy get tax breaks, that's going to trickle down to you. Well, guess what? It didn't happen. It's never happened, and it won't happen. So this idea that because they're going to then, we're worried that the middle class are going to start to pay more because this is going to creep down, makes no sense. We can afford to cut taxes for most people, especially if we stop our ridiculous foreign wars, overspending on military, getting out of those areas that are just draining us of sending money around the world, supporting countries that we shouldn't be supporting to begin with, and invest back at home. We can certainly cut taxes on those people. Then we can cut them even more when we get rid of all of this additional spending. What if we rewarded small and socially conscious businesses? We don't right now. In fact, small businesses really don't have much of a leg to stand on. Big businesses are where they get to make the best tax breaks. But why not a small business? Why not a small business that invests locally in local agriculture, local sustainable farming, whatever, hires locally? What if we rewarded those companies in the tax code? We don't. We have so much more we can do in the tax code. And one of the things we can do is not rate it to reward rich people. One of the things we can do in the tax code right now is not rate it to bail out big businesses again. One of the things we can do is to make sure we're not rating our tax code right now or rating the money that we do have out of Social Security to give additional tax breaks to those people. And that's exactly what President Trump has been looking to do with his payroll tax cut under his executive order. Now, he says he wants to pay it back out of the general fund. But there's an opening. There's a big new opening right now for Joe Biden. The Biden campaign has rolled out a brand new ad which is really effective. It's one of the more effective ads that I've seen, but it's not. Don't take my word for it. In fact, focus groups and the response has been overwhelmingly positive for the Biden campaign. And it could be one of these hidden targets that the Biden campaign hadn't really thought about, but President Trump opened himself up to it by offering that executive order a few weeks ago, wanting to instill that payroll tax cut for Americans. Now, most businesses have said, we're not touching this payroll tax cut because what happens is we're going to take money out of their paycheck now or give them more money in their paycheck now. We're going to have to take more money out of their paycheck in January when this expires. Now, President Trump has said he wants to keep it permanent, this payroll tax cut. He wants to permanently put this in place. Well, how are you going to pay for Social Security? One of the primary drivers of Social Security is payroll taxes. Republicans don't even support the president's plan, and neither do Democrats. Where are you going to how are you going to pay for Social Security? Now, if you've been watching my show for any length of time, I see a bunch of OGs on here who have been watching this for a long time. You know, my big thing is I think there's a Trojan horse at play from Republicans, specifically from President Trump, who wants to eliminate Social Security. Republicans hate Social Security, right? They hate this leftover remnant of FDR and the New Deal. Social Security, money for people in their retirement. Get rid of it. They can't stand it. They hate Medicare, Medicaid, all of those things. Get rid of these entitlements, right? Instead of, hey, I've worked all my life, and here's a safety net, a social safety net in place to protect our most vulnerable citizens from total poverty, that they'll be able to at least provide money, put money on their, buy groceries, pay their rent or mortgage. And payroll taxes pay for Social Security. Well, by all accounts, Social Security is heading for a disaster, heading for a cliff, so to speak. And President Trump wants to raid Social Security in order to pay for these stimulus plans or give money back through these payroll tax cuts and look like that he's helping people when really what his plan is, it's a Trojan horse, is to eliminate Social Security. Get rid of it. Completely make it insolvent. So here is this new Biden ad, and I think it's incredibly effective. I'm going to play it and get your response to it. Take a look.
The chief actuary of the Social Security Administration just released an analysis of Trump's planned cuts to Social Security. Under Trump's plan, Social Security would become permanently depleted by the middle of calendar year 2023. If Trump gets his way, Social Security benefits will run out in just 3 years from now. Don't let it happen. Joe Biden will protect Social Security.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Now, there's a couple of things with that. A couple of years ago, it's very easy to find on CNBC and otherwise where Joe Biden has talked about cutting parts of Social Security. This is, now he's had a change of heart. They're trying to at least point out that Joe Biden's position is more firm now, supporting Social Security, et cetera. But he has in the past not had a stellar record on Social Security. So before anyone jumps down my throat, I'm being fair. Joe Biden has not been the biggest fan of Social Security and has talked about defunding it, not defunding it, but reducing it, pushing the retirement age up, et cetera. So he's not Social Security's biggest friend. Let's go on the record with that. But he's also not calling for us to raid the Social Security fund in order to pay for stimulus money. And without payroll taxes, we cannot pay for Social Security. This is a winning argument for Joe Biden, and it may be one of the most important issues that if they can drill this home through the next round of debates, the first round of debates coming up here in just a few days at the end of September, this ad is working because it's true. Now, in part, it's true. President Trump has said that he wants to repay it, the Social Security Trust Fund, out of the general fund. My question is, where does all that money come from? So really, they're going to take money out of the general fund and place it into the Social Security Fund? Really? Without any of this, it's already set to be insolvent in 15 years. Now, by raiding it without these payroll taxes, this was the first quarter where really our government was taking in way less money than it was putting out. Way less. So we're already not bringing in enough money from revenue. City, state, and local governments are being hammered. They're not getting property taxes because people can't pay their mortgages. People aren't able to pay their rent because we don't have stimulus money. People can't pay their rent. The people they rent from, they can't pay their mortgage. They go into foreclosure. The city doesn't get any payroll taxes or property taxes. That you can't pay for firefighters, police, libraries, etc. Schools. So we want to tap into this. I see here a bunch of people in the chat say, I would not be, and Tina, you're right. Tina says it's not an entitlement. You're absolutely right about that. We are paying into a system. These people have paid into the system. Like my father has worked his whole life and he receives Social Security now. He's worked his whole life. This is his money. He paid into it. It's structured in such a way that young people are paying into it to help support our older generation. It's the way it works. And they've paid into it to support that. That's how this works. I'm going to go on record and say it's not enough. It's not enough at all. And if we had healthcare paid for all, instead of spending all of this money on foreign wars, 19 years in a foreign war right now, because Republicans love war and Democrats love war, because it's being driven by Wall Street. Both parties wants to pay lip service to hating war and want to get us out of war. None of them do. Obama talked about getting us out of these wars. He didn't. In fact, did more bombings under Obama, more drone strikes and bombings than under George W. Bush. So please pay attention to the truth. I'm not going to sit here and just bash Trump. I'm not going to sit here and bash Democrats. I'm going to tell you the truth about what's going on. Both of these corporate parties right now are bought and sold by Wall Street. And I would be stunned that this is why we need these people who are winning right now, who are starting to make a change, these people who are rising up, this younger generation who is saying enough is enough. We've seen it every 4 years. We go through these periods where you have these progressive candidates like Bernie Sanders who do really well in the primary, and then the corporate elites come in, they smash them, and we end up with a candidate like Joe Biden. We end up with like a candidate, like Mitt Romney. And then these third-party voices get pushed out, the ones that want to rattle the cage, that want to upend the apple cart, push out the Wall Street elites that are driving the show. Look, Wall Street hates Social Security, hates it. They want you to put your money in Wall Street. George W. Bush tried that, remember? Wanted to privatize Social Security, put it inside of Wall Street so you could invest in the stock market. Because, the S&P 500 historically is that's great. Let's reward Wall Street with $2 trillion funneling out of the federal government into Wall Street, because we don't already give them enough money and bail them out. Let's give them even more. So, again, all eyes on Illinois, or at least my eyes will be on Illinois, as this fascinating fair tax or a tax hike will be on their November ballot ahead of the candidates that they got it. And this would be the biggest change in taxation in decades for this state. It's going to be interesting, and it's going to be a simple yes or no vote in Illinois. And if they vote yes for this change, it'll go into effect in January. In this graduated system of taxes, the more you make, the more you pay. The less you make, the less you pay. It's the way it works, based on these different tiers. Fascinating. Let me know in the comments what you think about all of this. Smash that like button if I brought you any value at all, and subscribe to the channel. And, this is not a place to be bought and sold by the mainstream media. If you want the mainstream media, there's plenty of places you can flip on MSNBC, CNN, Fox, all of those guys.